Preface. Horror has always been a fascination of mine, and it's a joy to share that with my son. This collection of stories is a testament to our mutual love of the genre. So turn off the lights, grab a blanket, and prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown. Chapter 1. The Beginning of Isolation. Ethan Carter sat hunched over his computer in the dimly lit apartment, the soft glow of multiple screens the only source of light in the room. His fingers moved furiously across the keyboard, the rhythmic clacking of the keys, the only sound in the eerie silence. Finally, let's see if this works, he muttered to himself, dragging a single image of his own face into the app's interface, a simple headshot he had taken years ago. His tired eyes scanned the progress bar as the algorithm began to process. A soft ding echoed in the stillness, and Ethan's screen filled with hundreds of pictures, images of him throughout his life. Childhood birthdays, awkward high school selfies, photos from work events. Each picture felt familiar. Well, that's creepy and impressive. Ethan chuckled, scrolling through them with a small grin. The app was working perfectly, just as he had designed it. But something shifted. His hand froze over the mouse as unfamiliar images began to flood the screen. Pictures of himself in places he didn't remember being, on the street, in random settings, from strange angles that made him feel watched. "What the hell?" he whispered, his frown deepening. And then he saw it, a photo of himself lying in bed, asleep. The shot was impossibly clear, as though it had been taken from above. His heart pounded in his chest as more pictures appeared. In some, his eyes were closed. In others, he was wide awake, staring directly at the camera. Fear gripped him. Ethan stood up quickly, his pulse racing. He grabbed his jacket and rushed out of his building, barely able to focus on the blur of people and cars around him. His phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking through the panic. It was Lena, his wife. She sounded lighthearted, unaware of the storm brewing inside him. "Hey, babe, you okay? You left early," she said, her voice warm and familiar. "Yeah, I'm fine, just work stuff. I'll explain later," he responded, trying to mask the fear in his voice as he looked over his shoulder, his paranoia building. "Work stuff? I thought you were coding from home today," Lena teased with a soft laugh. "I was. I just need to check something." Ethan hung up quickly, his eyes scanning the busy street again. It felt like eyes were on him, like someone was watching. Every face he passed seemed suspicious, but none of them lingered. He could barely catch his breath. Hours later, back in his apartment, Ethan sat in front of his computer again, hands shaking slightly as he pulled up the same folder. His mind kept racing, trying to make sense of what he had seen. He had disconnected the app from the network, but he couldn't stop thinking about those images, especially the one of him sitting at his desk, staring at the computer, time-stamped just minutes before. "How?" he whispered, his throat dry. His phone rang, the sudden noise making him flinch. It was Marcus Graves, his old colleague and the only person who could help him understand this. "Marcus, we need to talk," Ethan said, his voice tense and urgent. "Hey man, what's up?" "You sound freaked out," Marcus replied casually. "There's something wrong with the app. It's pulling in pictures of me, personal ones, stuff that shouldn't exist," Ethan explained, his voice rising with panic. Marcus laughed, but Ethan could hear the hesitation behind it. "Come on, Ethan. You've been up too late. It's probably just some cached images." "No, Marcus, this isn't some glitch. There are pictures of me, real-time pictures. Someone is watching me." Ethan's voice cracked with fear as he paced the room, the phone shaking in his hand. The other end of the line went quiet for a moment. When Marcus spoke again, his tone was serious. Are you saying someone hacked the system? I don't know. These pictures, they're impossible. There are photos of me sleeping, Marcus. They're from last night, this morning. While I was working, even while I was on the phone with you. Ethan's frustration bled through every word. Marcus's silence stretched for too long before he finally said, Ethan, shut it down. Just shut the whole thing down. I'll come over tomorrow and we'll figure it out. But for tonight, no, Marcus. I need answers now. Ethan interrupted, desperation seeping into his voice. Before Marcus could respond, the call dropped. Ethan stared at his phone, a pit forming in his stomach. His computer screen flickered, and a new message popped up. You shouldn't have looked. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He backed away from the desk, dread creeping over him like a shadow. His breathing quickened as he looked around the room, every dark corner suddenly feeling hostile. Oh my God, he whispered, terror gripping him fully now. The apartment was silent, but Ethan could feel eyes on him, watching, waiting. Chapter 2. Discovery and Dread. Ethan hadn't slept. His eyes were bloodshot, glued to the screen in front of him. He kept reopening the same images, the same haunting pictures of himself asleep, staring into the camera, over and over again. His heart pounded each time he saw the timestamp, each photo taken just moments before he found it. A loud knock at the door startled him. His heart raced. He hadn't been expecting anyone. Ethan stood up slowly, cautiously moving toward the door. He glanced through the peephole. It was Marcus Graves, standing in the dimly lit hallway, holding a takeout bag. Ethan opened the door just a crack. Took you long enough, he muttered, letting Marcus step inside. Marcus smirked, setting the takeout on the table as he glanced around the cluttered apartment. Hey, I brought food. Figured you wouldn't eat unless someone forced it on you, he joked. But his smile faltered when he saw the state of the room, and of Ethan. Ethan ignored the attempt at humor. His voice was tight, his anxiety clearly showing. Forget the food. We need to talk about what's happening. Marcus crossed his arms, his face growing more serious as he studied Ethan's haggard appearance. Yeah, you look like hell, man. What's going on? Ethan ran his hands through his hair, pacing the room. I wasn't imagining it. The app's pulling in these pictures of me. Not just old photos, but real-time shots. Like someone's been watching me. I swear to God, Marcus, someone's been in my house. Marcus frowned, his brow furrowing in confusion. Real-time shots. That's impossible, Ethan. The app's supposed to pull from public databases, maybe some hidden ones, but it can't take live photos. Ethan's frustration boiled over, his voice rising as he stopped pacing. That's what I thought, but I'm seeing pictures of me from last night, this morning. Photos of me sleeping. Photos taken while we were on the phone last night. His hands shook as he rushed to his desk, pulling up the folder on his computer. He pointed to the most recent images. Photos of him at the cafe, of him sitting at his desk, the coffin. Marcus leaned in, his face growing pale as he looked at the images. Jesus, Marcus whispered, taking a step back. Ethan's voice trembled. See? That one. Taken while we were on the phone. You tell me how that's possible, Marcus. Marcus's face went rigid, his mind racing. This can't be a glitch. Did you search your apartment? Hidden cameras? Maybe someone's messing with you. I tore the place apart. There's nothing here. No cameras, no bugs. It's like these images are coming from nowhere. Ethan's voice was strained, his desperation palpable. Marcus stood still for a moment, a deep frown crossing his face. Ethan, this is bigger than a hack. If what you're saying is true, Someone's got access to something way beyond our understanding. Maybe government surveillance, something deeper than public records. Ethan blinked, staring at Marcus. Government? No way. They wouldn't waste their time watching me. Marcus's expression hardened, his voice lowering. Who says it's about you? Your app might have tapped into something you weren't supposed to touch. You've always been curious, always digging. Maybe you found a back door into a system you didn't even know existed. Ethan swallowed hard, dread creeping through his chest. A back door? Into what? Marcus didn't answer immediately. His face was tense, eyes darkened with concern. After a long pause, he finally spoke. We need to shut it down, wipe everything. The app, your systems, all of it, before this gets worse. Ethan hesitated. The fear gnawed at him, but so did his need for answers. He couldn't just walk away, not now. Not when he was so close to understanding what was happening. I can't just walk away, he said quietly, almost to himself. Marcus grabbed his shoulder, forcing him to stop pacing. You don't have a choice. The words hung in the air between them like a warning. Ethan wanted to argue, to push back, but deep down he knew Marcus was right. He was in over his head, but still, he needed to know. Later that night, Ethan found himself walking the foggy streets of the city, his mind spinning with paranoia. Every footstep behind him felt closer than it should have been. He stopped to look around, but every time, there was no one there. The streetlights flickered above him, casting eerie shadows on the pavement. His phone buzzed. It was Lena again. Everything okay? Haven't heard from you. Miss you. Ethan stared at the text, his thumb hovering over the screen. How could he explain any of this to her? It would sound insane. He typed a quick response. Yeah, all good. Be home soon. He kept walking, the sense of being watched gnawing at him with every step. He finally ducked into a small cafe, trying to catch his breath. The glow from the street outside seemed harsher now, as if it was cutting through the fog just for him. As he sat down, his phone buzzed again. A photo appeared on the screen. Ethan's blood ran cold. It was him, sitting in the cafe right now. The angle, it was taken from outside through the window. His eyes snapped up, scanning the street outside. But there was no one there. No camera, no stranger lurking in the shadows. Nothing. This isn't possible, Ethan muttered, his voice trembling. His phone buzzed again. Another photo. Closer this time. No, he whispered, standing up quickly. He bolted out of the cafe, running blindly through the fog-drenched streets, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of his chest. He didn't stop running until he reached his apartment, slamming the door behind him, bolting it shut. His chest heaved as he leaned against the door, every nerve in his body on edge. His phone buzzed again. He didn't want to check it, but he had to. His hands shook as he unlocked the screen. One last message flashed across the display. We see you. Ethan collapsed into his chair, shaking uncontrollably. His mind was spinning, torn between fear and disbelief. His computer screen flickered again. The final image appeared, searing itself into his memory. A darkened room with a single coffin at the center.